fighting and really fighting, because it's not easy to, in this world where a lot of the falsification of history has come like a normal thing. Everybody is like doubting about the legality, even the history of the Jewish people, and everybody should be thankful for people like Mr. Katzler, Yaakov Katz, and for our warden, from our Sheva, to be there present.
Amen.
For us living in Galus, to be the flag and carry this hard burden to make sure that we have a vibrant, kicking country where people respect all the laws of the land and regulation. So the first speaker tonight is Baruch Gordon. Baruch Gordon is the editor of Aris Sheva, who's a rabbi in Israel, but he's a lot more than that. And I've heard about Baruch Gordon for many, times, and I want to have him come in, Baruch. And I want you to speak a bit before about yourself. Tell us who you are, and present yourself. And before Yaakov Katz will come and speak with you. Thank you.
Hey!
Shalom, good evening. My name is Baruch, as you just heard, and I was born and reared in Memphis. And after 18 years of life listening to the blues, I decided to pick up and move to Israel, where I, after a little bit of college here, and started studying yeshiva. And since then, I got married to an Israeli girl. We have 7 children. We live in Beit El since 1983. Been in Beit El, and we have 7 grandchildren now. That's a little bit about me, but I just wanted to tell you that Katz and I landed at the airport here, and you see Spanish everywhere, and we hadn't davened mincha yet, and I wanted to daven mincha, and I asked the workers, there are synagogue here, and he looks at me and says, oh yes, over there are all types of cigarettes. So then I started thinking about it, that we're speaking at the Cuban Hebrew congregation, and I was starting to wonder what language. We didn't really discuss the language that I was supposed to speak in, so I'm relieved to hear that the introduction was in English, and I'm assuming it's okay if I continue in English. We just had elections in Israel, and strong government, but the issues that the state of Israel faces tonight, some of these issues I'm going to touch upon, some Katz is going to touch upon. But one of the main issues, certainly from the standpoint of the world, if not from the Israeli society right now, is the issue of Judea and Samaria. So first of all, Judea and Samaria, let's understand what we're talking about. Let me pull up a picture here. So if you look over here on the map, just to understand what we're talking about, Judea and Samaria is the West Bank, and a lot of people aren't really sure what is the West Bank, where we're talking about. So we're looking here at the center of Israel. In the center of Israel, where I have the mouse here, you see that mouse? It is like 3 north-south sections. So here's a north-south section along the coast called the coastal plain. And here's a north-south section. It's sort of been raised up. This is the high area here, the mountainous section. It's from Jerusalem northward is the Shomron or Samaria. From Jerusalem southward is the high hilly area called Judea. And that's the West Bank. And over here on the border with Jordan is a very low section, so low that it's the lowest place in the whole wide world. Because the Dead Sea right here is the lowest place. It's a north-south strip from the Kinneret all the way down here. That's also, most of it is part of the West Bank, or the Samaria, and it's a low place. So when you think about it, the heart of the country, this high elevated area, is the area that we're talking about. Jerusalem is here, and Beit El, for example, is about right here. You go a little further, you get to Shiloh. A little further, you get to Shechem. Going down south is Efrat, some of you know. In other words, these areas and these communities today is the area in question. So when the world is saying Israel must give away the West Bank, etc., we're talking about something that starts around here, right up here. It goes all the way here. It leaves Israel here, just 9 miles wide, right? Understand that where the high mountains are overlooking Netanya, here in this area, this is 9 miles, and the border continues around here. So just an understanding of what we're talking about. But I think that the state of Israel is at a certain turning point right now. I want you to follow me and understand this because it's captivating, it's fascinating. You know, for the past tens of years, since we liberated, thank you, Barry. Since we liberated these areas, because the state of Israel up until 1967 didn't include the West Bank. It just was this little narrow strip here called the state of Israel. And we liberated in 1967, and immediately right after that, some Jews went to Hebron down here. But it was only 1977 when the Jews started settling this area and bringing a Jewish presence back here, Ketzler being one of the pioneers and the leaders of that movement. So today, and since then, it's been a major point against keeping the West Bank. Her main point against the Jewish presence in Judea and Samaria was the demographic issue, the demographic problem. She said, there's a lot of Arabs here, and if we incorporate this area, Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, into the state of Israel, we're taking in all of these Arabs and we'll change, they're going to outpopulate us because they're having babies much faster than we are, and the gap at one point was as much as 6 babies. The average Jewish mother was having 3 babies, and the average Arab mother was having 9 babies. So with that, why do we want to keep this? This is a hot potato. This is a ticking bomb. Let's get rid of it. That's the solution of peace now. There's another person who had a solution, Rabbi Meir Kahana. He said, you're right, it's a ticking bomb. Let's throw the Arabs out or encourage them to leave. So there's 2 extreme different approaches of what to do with this issue, but everyone agreed in the country that to hang on to Judea and Samaria is insane, because if you don't do something, because you're going to have this influx of Arabs and they'll outpopulate us and we'll lose the Jewish character of the state. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to be a bearer of good news tonight. There's good news. The good news is that the population statistics have changed all throughout the Middle East. There's a famous researcher, Dr. Nicholas Eberstadt, who has shown that over the last 2 decades, throughout the entire Middle East, there he is, throughout the entire Middle East, the population, the birth rates of Muslim countries has dropped drastically, to the point that he writes that 6 of the 10 largest decline in fertility over any 2-decade period ever to take place in recorded human history have occurred in Muslim countries in the last 2 decades. Something has happened. They were having a lot of babies, but now they're not. So, for example, in Iran, that's the place that's had the highest drop, 1.7 births per woman there, right? In Egypt, 2.5 births per woman. In Jordan, which is a twin sister of Judea and Samaria, less than 3 births per woman. And in Syria, it goes on and on. So what's happening? Now, it's hit Judea and Samaria as well. And if we look here at the stats, this is the fertility rate. If you look all the way over to the left, down here, you can see this is 1960, 65. Rabbi Kahana came to Israel in 1970, and that's when he was screaming, and correctly so, about the problem. I'm not talking about his policies, but the problem that he identified. Look here, over 1970, you had 3.28. Follow the mouse here. 3.28 births per Jewish woman, and 9.22 births per Arab mother. A gap of 6. Well, look how the gap has gone. Over here on the far right, it's 2010. You can see that the orange Arab birth rate has gone down and down and down. These numbers are from the Central Bureau of Statistics. And the Jewish birth rate over the last 2 decades, if you look here, has started to rise. And the causes are also, why are the Arabs having less children? The age to get married has gone much higher. Many Arab women are saying, I'm not willing to be one of 3 or 4 wives. If you marry me, I'm the only wife. Urbanization, there's been a move from rural areas into urban areas. Westernization in general. There's an unprecedented number of Arab women getting college degrees now, so the age that they're starting to give birth is much later. A lot of reasons, they're going down and down. So that's a very important thing to understand and internalize regarding the debate over the future of this area. There's another part, and that is, how many Jews are there in Judea and Samaria? So Ketzler, when he was elected to the Knesset 4 years ago, if you ask someone on the street, how many Jews are there in Judea and Samaria? You know how it happens sometimes we have a figure in our heads, and the last time we checked it was 20 years ago, so people walk around, they say, oh, 120,000.
That's when I last heard. Well, I have news for you. The last time you heard was 20 years ago, but things have changed since then. And the rate of reproduction of Baruch Hashem, the Judaic Samaria, is twice that of the rest of Israel. So that if you look at 1990, there were approximately 120,000. In December 31st, 10 years later, in the year 2000, was 190,000 Jews in Judaic Samaria. So almost double, almost double. 12 years later, at December 31st, 2012, we were talking about over 360,000. Now, if you add to that the Jews of the Eastern Jerusalem neighborhoods, another 300,000, you're reaching close to 700,000 Jews over the Green Line, meaning in that area that we were talking about over here, approximately 700,000 Jews, right, the West Bank area. That's a tenth of the Jews in the country, more than a tenth of the Jews in the country. So these figures, people didn't know. And Kessler started printing them, every time they got up with the Knesset printed. He told people, religious Zionist leaders didn't know that. They said, oh, Kessler, you're exaggerating. He brought the figures from the Census Bureau of Statistics. And he started just speaking about this again and again until people started to internalize, my God, we didn't know what was happening, but the public there is now a tenth of the country. In America, that would be comparable to what, 35 million Americans, something like that. It's a fact on the ground that's changed. So because of that, if we look at some of the intellectuals who led the movement against Judaic Samaria, take for example Yossi Sari. So Yossi Sari came out with an article on Erev Tisha B'Av. It was July 27, 2012. It's in the mouse, you can see here. And he was the leader of Meretz. He was the leader of the movement against having a Jewish president. And here's what he wrote. I always convinced myself that what was being done can, he says in the article, he fell asleep at the wheel, and that's it. The settlers won. It's a fait accompli. He goes in a different direction towards the end of the article, but to hear that from him, it's an amazing thing. Also, Miron Ben Davisky was a deputy mayor of Jerusalem, very, very ardent supporter of the movement to get the Jews out of Judaic Samaria and to make it Judaized and to hand it over back to the Arabs. And he writes, it's irreversible. Nothing will help. Nothing will help. Ehud Barak, Ehud Olmert, and Tzipi Livni, those are members of the Knesset who are trying to make a two-state solution. It's irreversible. You can't get out of this mess. I'm coming to say that today's dominant paradigm of a two-state solution is a falsehood, and I am fighting it. At one time, it would have been possible to divide the land, but not today. I have a video. I just didn't get it. It's in Hebrew. I didn't get the subtitles in time for this tonight's speech. It's an amazing video. Professor Amiram Goldblum. He's one of the founders of Peace Now. And this founder of Peace Now is speaking at the second Peace Now conference. This is in May of last year. And he gets up and he says, very interesting statement. He opens and he says, I'm going to be a little bit of a pessimist tonight. And he says the following. He says, the struggle and the battle over Judea Samaria has been, the war is over. He said, the settlers, the Jews of Judea Samaria, they won, and he says like this, they won, and I apologize for my language here, in their bedrooms. By populating the area to such an extent, it's impossible. It's just a fait accompli. There's nothing we can do. So he, towards the end, reaches the conclusion that the only thing we can do, he says he's given up on convincing the Israelis. There's no one to convince. It's just, we can't do anything. The only thing we can do, he says, is to go to international courts, and go around the world and try and get world pressure to force Israel to force Israel's hand to give away Judea Samaria. But to talk to the Israeli public and to a Democrat trying to convince them, the Democratic elites, he's given up. He's given up. There's a beautiful aspect of Judea Samaria, and that's the rich Jewish history here. One of the things I do is I'm a tour guide, and when I came to Israel in 1981, I studied Tanakh for 2 years in a class, and we went out every other week in a bus to see Judea Samaria, to see the sites in the city. So it's a fascinating thing. When you go to an Arab village, if you think about it, an Arab village today, Arab villages, by the way, when we established Beitel, they didn't have water. A lot of them didn't have electricity. So the conditions that they needed to establish a village were the same conditions that our forefathers did 3,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago. So many of the Arab villages are built, most of them are built on the remains of ancient Jewish towns. So you go around and we saw these places. I have a passion for this. I love this. And Judea Samaria is where most of the stories from our Tanakh happen. It's just oozing with history where these events happen. So I invite you all to contact us if you have anything on tour when you come. And I want to conclude because Kess is going to be the main speaker tonight. But I want to make an appeal. And the appeal I make to both Orthodox, Reform, and Conservative Jews, to Jews of all stripes, of all walks, all over. And that is that there's certain intellectuals within on the side, certain intellectuals, those that are saying that we shouldn't have Jews in Judea and Samaria, that are starting to internalize and understand it's over. It's like it's over, and there's really nothing we can do now, and that we just have to face this reality. But I think we should look at it another way. The history of Zionism is such that it's, when I say I'm a Zionist, when a person wants to define Zionism, we're talking about a movement that started 2,000 years ago, when Rome came and threw us out of our land. And they sold us into slavery for the same amount that it cost to sell, to feed a donkey for a day. They ripped us out of our land. They made us gladiators. We had to kill one another for sport. And we were degraded. We became a nation that was not living as a nation, but refused to die. And we were like a national ghost going through thousands of years of history. But there was a yearning for a return. And that yearning for a return received its first concrete expression in what's called modern Zionism in the late 1800s. But it's a national liberation movement for our nation. And our nation belongs to all of us. It belongs to the Reformed, Conservative, and Orthodox. And this movement has come to fruition in these years. It's been a tremendous success. Everywhere you go in Israel, you see beautiful and good things. And when you look at it, the moral and historical facts are on our side, 100%. But we have become the primary victim of a global agenda which is set to eliminate small state nations in favor of continental blocs. So you have these corporatocracies, these huge international corporations, you have media force that are trying to rip away. Their agenda is, and the superpowers of the West, if it's the European Union, if it's the US State Department, if it's Russia, if it's the UN, that are saying, you, the Jewish people, you cannot sit in the heartland of your homeland, right? The heartland being the center part right here. You cannot sit there, you have to ethnically cleanse the Jews that are there in the ancient Hebrew towns of Bethel, of Shiloh, of Shechem, of Bethlehem. All these places are our towns, our ancient Jewish towns. And the world is saying to our people, we are oppressing you and we want to crush your rights and not allow you to live here. So the picture that I'm painting is that it's not so much a struggle between us and the Arabs. It's a struggle between the superpowers of Israel, which is trying to just claim its rights and to have the same right as any nation in the world to be entitled to rule in its own land. So I appeal to everyone to embrace Judea and Samaria, to embrace Zionism, to embrace Israel, to support us by coming, come and visit it, come and see it. It's safe. We bring a lot of people there. There's buses. You go around. It's a beautiful part of the country, and all of you are invited to get involved on the pages. I put pages on every table here that says "Stay in touch." So I invite you just to join our email list. If you put it down, please write clearly. If there's any doctors here, ask your wives to write the email. Put down your email address, and we'll put you on the list. You'll get an email to confirm it. And it's just a good way to stay in touch, to see a lot of interesting facts, interesting analysis about Israel. The final point is that in the recent elections, when you study what happened, you see for the first election, I've been very involved in all the elections, for the first election in the state of Israel in the last tens of years, the Palestinian issue was not the central issue. And I think the reason is because of what we discussed. You know, they've tried so many solutions to give away Gaza. It blew up in their faces. It only brought us Hamas. It brought us missiles. They tried to give away Hebron. It brought us terrorist attacks. Everything they've done has only backfired, and it's brought us misery. So they feel like, we're not going to go anywhere. We don't have a partner to talk to. Let's talk about other issues. The Israeli public has said by voting with Lapid and others, this issue is not a major issue on the agenda today. So I think we should all accept that and embrace Judea and Samaria, embrace Zionism, join us. It's a fight. I have 7 stitches in my head from the rocks that were thrown in our car. I've been shot at. There are places and times where there's difficulties, but in general, I said there's not. When we started with Sheba, I was called to the police, and I had a 3-hour interrogation over an article on our site that said that if Israel, there was an article, an opinion article on our site. I was interrogated for 3 hours in the police of it. It's like, it's almost as if the superpowers of the world are influencing policy in Israel to oppress people who stand up for Jewish rights in Judea and Samaria. But we withstood it, and the final point I want to make is to introduce Ketzaleh. And I said here in my talk that from 1990 to the year 2000, the population in Judea and Samaria almost doubled. Well, how did that happen? Right? It wasn't just people having babies, it was also apartments being built. Ketzaleh was injured in the 73 war. He had an RPG right to his hip and lost a major part of the left part of his body. And miraculously, General Ariel Sharon, who was very close to him, he was in his unit, he, against regulations, had a helicopter land under fire to evacuate Ketzaleh because he knew Ketzaleh would be a future for the Jewish state, the Jewish people. And Ketzaleh recuperated in the hospital for, I think it was a year, or 6 months or a year, where he married a advisor to the housing minister, Ariel Sharon. Sharon made him a senior advisor. He said, Ketzaleh, you build Judea and Samaria. In those 2 years, Ketzaleh set the record for housing starts in the state of Israel. There was an article in the largest newspaper, Yediot Ahronoth, and they just described the way Ketzaleh would run through the housing industry, signing contract after contract. The Hasidic rabbis were hugging him, saying, "Oh, Ketzaleh would build for them in neighborhoods. He would build for everyone, in all sorts of segments of the Israeli society." And he's the one who, against George Bush Sr., who was trying to stop this, it was George Bush on one side. He was getting the satellite maps of all the construction going on, screaming at Yitzhak Shamir on the phone, who was screaming at Ariel Sharon, and Ariel Sharon and Ketzaleh would sit and laugh. So Ketzaleh was the one doing the work and the one building. He's a leader, the leader of the religious Zionist movement, of the movement to return Jewish honor and sovereignty to Judea and Samaria. He was elected to the Knesset as the head of the Knesset movement that stands for this. And he's also the one who established the Arutz Sheva, the Hebrew the radio station, and the internet site. After the radio station, they asked me to start the internet site. The Arutz Sheva was a tremendous success both within Israel and over the internet. So thank you all very much for having us here. And after Ketzaleh talks, we'll have an opportunity for questions. And please do fill out the form so we can stay in touch. We'd like to call upon Yaakov Katz, Ketzaleh, Knesset member, S.A.
Hey, hey! Hey, hey! All right!
Erev Tov, he was the main speaker, and I will add a few words because he spoke so nice and he brought the whole points. And I know that it's very late, but I want to say. First of all, many thanks to Rina, the heart, the stick of fire of Miami Beach, that she does so much for the Jewish community over here. And thank you very much for organizing such a beautiful evening in honor of Eretz Israel, in honor of Torah Israel, in honor of Am Israel. And whatever you're doing, you're succeeding because you're doing it for Klal Israel. And you'll be blessed.
Hey, hey!
Many generations to come. I want you to know that I came to Florida many years ago. It was 1977. 1977, we just started Beit El. Today you have to understand, I tell you an example, our city, Beit El of Yaakov Avinu, Beit El mentioned in the Bible 65 times, we came to Beit El, $1,000 of Obama time. And invited me, and we started to make every year Motzei Shabbos in North Miami Beach, and the result became that we built a lot of Judea and Samaria, but you know, Rabbi Connie Michael Goldstein made the revolution in North Miami Beach, in Miami Beach in general. You are also lucky by having here in the city, I think, the major and the most important leaders of the Jewish people today in general is Dr. Erwin Moskovich, that the Kadosh Baruch will give you long life, together with his lovely wife Sherman, that they are the biggest givers in the Jewish world today, and what they did for Jerusalem, for Judea Sameach for the Torah life, the all גרעינים תורניים in Jaffa, in Natzrat, in Dimona, in every place you name it, Dr. Erwin and Cherna Boscovich have been involved. And unfortunately, you had another great guy, Guma Aguiar, that hopefully is still alive, that he did so much to Nefesh B'Nefesh, that also grew up over here in Florida, in Miami Beach, and he did so much to Judah and Samaria, and he did so much to Arutz Sheva. I cannot tell you how much money he gave, a big amount of money, so much money to Chabad institutions, and hopefully all of a sudden he will be found, and we could say, I'll tell you a story about Guma, that one day he took me to see his apartment. He bought an apartment towards Akotel, towards Beit HaMikdash, and he paid a lot of money for that. And I asked him, Guma, who is the guy who sold you the apartment? He said, don't you know his name? He said, yes, I know. He said, his name is Mr. Fool, Mr. Tipesh. So I said, why is it Mr. Fool? He said, if somebody is selling an apartment to our especially Dash, he has to be stupid. And I'm the smart one because I bought an apartment next to the Beit HaMikdash. He was a wonderful man, and I'm not saying he was, because it was God who made us a few miracles. Maybe all of a sudden, like Eliyahu Navi, will be discovered. In any case, so Florida and Miami Beach did a lot to Eretz Israel, and you have a big part of the surviving of the state of Israel. Now I wanted to say only a few words. We are talking about the new government, we are talking about Netanyahu as the prime minister. I decided in this election not to run. First of all, it's very hard for me to run because I have a cane, so to run it's a little bit hard for me. But I decided for my personal reasons not to be involved in this election. That just I was the head of the national, and I was not involved. I tried to help a lot to Bennett, to the Bayit Yehudi, and we did help with Arutz Sheva. Everybody watched Arutz Sheva to see the whole effort that we have made, and we are very lucky to see that the national strategic people, question of time, that our people that are leading today leading the army and they're leading other fields in the state of Israel, they will lead also the political life. I think that the time that we have been, all of us, born, and you have to see the paper that my uncle left me on the table. We are living in a time of a revolution. That to be in that time of the Jewish history, you have to be a revolutionary. This man is a revolutionary. The other, where is the strong Jew standing always in that is a revolutionary. We are all revolutionaries because we are living in a time that in order to understand the way that the Kadosh Baruch Hu works with us, is also a revolutionary. Look, the way that the Kadosh Baruch Hu is leading the world today. We are surrounded by many enemies.
Yes.
Look what happened in Libya, they're killing each other. In Syria, killing each other. In Lebanon, killing each other. By Mursi, they're killing each other. כבשה אחת בין 70 זאבים, one sheep among 70, and like דוד המלך say, יפול מצדך 1,000 וגברה מימינך, אליך לא ייגש, רק בעיניך תביט, ושילומת רשעים תראה. You know what I said. You know this, who is translating? David Melech said in one of the Tehillim songs, and we say it in Shabbos, you will see, יפול מצדך 1,000, on one side you see 1,000 people are dying, from the other side 10,000 people are dying, but they don't touch us. Look what's happening in Syria. Each one of the enemies is killing the Shia and the Sunni, killing each other, and both of them saying in order, we have to be strong in order to kill the Jewish people. But meanwhile they're killing each other. In Egypt, each one saying, the intellectual people, the left people, they hate us not less as the Muslim Brotherhood, but they say we have to kill the other one in order to destroy the state of Israel. But meanwhile, they're killing each other. The same thing happened in Lub. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in his way, like in a football, you are all familiar with the football that you have when in order to get the ball from the to stop the attacker to touch the guy running with the ball. The ball is running from one to another, not to touch us, and we are running forward. We are running and we are running. And because of that, 6.5 million Jews in Israel, the Iron Wall. And all of a sudden, we are 6.5 million Jews, and less and less and less Arabs. This is a miracle that we are seeing it in our own eyes. Rehavia, you know Rehavia? You know how much money you have to pay today in Rehavia to buy an apartment? 100 square meters. You have to pay for every square meter close to between $15,000 to $20,000 per square meter. How much money you paying here in Florida, you know, to buy an apartment? Between $15,000 to $20,000 per square meter. Forget about it. It was a time that when you had apartments in North Miami Beach, you could buy 4 apartments in Yerushalayim. Today you have 1 apartment in Yerushalayim, you can buy 5 apartments in Miami Beach. It means it's a revolution that we have to see it in our own eyes, that something happening in Israel, that it's a revolution. And in order to understand and to help and to realize what are the first and the next steps that we are going to see in this coming future, it's only if we are thinking in a revolution way. And what I wanted to know what I'm thinking about the future. As Baruch said, first of all, in Eretz Israel we are seeing something that we cannot see in Chutz La'aretz. In Chutz La'aretz we have a Jewish community in Miami Beach, we have a Jewish community in New York, we have a Jewish community in Los Angeles, and it's true that if a Jew coming from Los Angeles and you'll come to North Miami to Sharet Field Shul, or to that Shul, probably people will invite you. Am I right? Would be, they don't come Sharet, but they have no responsibility. Normally, the Jews from Florida don't take care of the Jews living in New York, right? There's no cash. But in Eretz Israel, as we say in Mincha, Mikam Chai Israel, Goy Echad, Ba'aretz. In Eretz Israel, we are all united. If we want, if we don't want. The Jew lives in Kiryat Shmona has a very, very, very strong connection to the Southern Hasidim who live in Mea Shearim. If they want, if they don't want. Because we are living in Eretz Israel. Aman HaRasha in Purim, we will read about him. When he came to Achashverosh, he said, Yeshno Am Echad, the one entity, they are united. But because of that we have to kill them. But why have to kill them? Why can we kill them now? You remember the Nishef of the Pasuk? ישנו עם אחד, מפוזר ומפורד בין העמים. דלתיהם שוב. They are splitting. They are separated. In Eretz Israel, it's the opposite. No matter what people telling you, we have Lapid, and we have Meretz, and we have מפלגת העבודה, and we have בית יהודי, and we have good, ומי כעמך ישראל. And we see, unfortunately, many machlokot. You know, you have to choose, you have 10 ideas, because you have 5,000 Jews. This is the way that the Jewish people live together. It's very hard to be united, because everybody is, כולנו חכמים, כולנו נבונים, כולנו יודעים את התורה, everybody knows everything. But, miraculously, we see that we succeed to make coalition. And we have a very, very handsome Prime Minister. He's a little bit older, but he's still very, very handsome. And now we have a very handsome leader of Beit Yehudi, and we have a very handsome of Yesh Atid. It will come a time that we will have not only handsome, also smart, wise, but handsome is also something. Remember, you have so many stars running America today. Obama is very handsome, Kennedy was very handsome, Reagan was a star, a movie star, was very handsome. Handsome is also something. To be an actor, it's also something. It's starting by being an actor, and later you become a leader. Ben-Gurion, if you would run today, you would have no chance. You're too small, too fat. He didn't win. Eshkol not have any chance to win any election. Shamir, nobody could see. He was under the table. So he could not be elected even. But today is the time of handsome people. But this time will be over. The people will start to understand that we need not only handsome like Lapid, handsome like Bibi, handsome like that. We will look for other things as well. And this time is coming. Because Am Yisrael is a holy nation. Am Yisrael is Am Kadosh. Am Yisrael is Am Ta'or. Am Yisrael is Am Hashem. And because of that, we are overcoming and we are going from strength to strength. And if you're asking me what's going on in Eretz Israel in the future, you have to ask the Jew that was allowed in the time of the Crusaders, they occupied Israel in the 11th century from the Muslims, and they controlled the state of Eretz Israel until the end of the 12th century. Under this, they didn't allow no Jew. They were much more extremist, with much more humiliated the Jewish people than the Muslims before. And they didn't allow no Jew to be in Jerusalem. Then, in the Gniza, you know what is Gniza in Cairo, that was found in the late 19th century, and today it's in Oxford, in London. They found a letter that the Jew wrote to his rabbi in Cairo. It was found in the Gniza. And he writes to his rabbi, and he said like that, because I'm professional in his work, they allowed me to come to Jerusalem. And I want you, Rabbi, to make a big simcha in Cairo, because there is one, I'm talking about 900 people, there is one Jew in Jerusalem. Listen to me. He said you have to make a big simcha, because there is one Jew in Jerusalem. Why was it so asked? Because he saw the day that we will have today in Jerusalem and around Jerusalem over 1 million Jews. Because of that, he said instead of being miyuash and desperate and saying, only one Jew in Yerushalayim, one Jew in Yerushalayim. And he said you have to make a celebration because it's the beginning of coming back to Yerushalayim. So that's what we are seeing today in Eretz Israel, and what we are, the beauty of Eretz Israel, and the beauty of the Yeshuvim of Eretz Israel, the beauty of the Torah of Eretz Israel, the beauty of the forest of Eretz Israel, the beauty of the street in Eretz Israel, the beauty of the Talmidei Chachamim and Talmudei Torah, the beauty of the army. You know, I have in the last war that almost started in Gaza, 6 out of 7 of my children were on the border, in different units, in elite command units, all of them. And we were not more in my mind. 6. Most of the families in Judea and Samaria, in the list 5, 4, all the kids were there, were ready to get in. And the war didn't start in that war, the war before, everybody participated in Lebanon, and we have not been afraid. We have the bitachon that we are living in a time of a revolution. And you are taking also a big part of that revolution, and because of that we are winning. And the government that will be formed from many pieces, like from a pattern, I don't know how many years this government will succeed to hold itself, maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years. Last time it was 4 years. I am 4 years in the opposition, I promised to be part of the coalition with Bibi Netanyahu, but in the end of the day, instead of Kessler, he took Barak, remember Barak, and what he did. Lots of troubles to our people. When the left government, every government, they automatically becoming together, like in Rabin time, like in Barak time, and they don't care about other things. But when somebody from the right or from the religious become you know, the others to try to, I'm not sure that you will take benefits. I'm not sure, because there's so much hatred from Bibi to Ben. Both in Ishi, in a personal way, because he was a general, I don't know. But in the end of the day, something good for sure will come out of it. I don't know how it will come, because with Bibi you never know what he's going to do. But as Paul said, that the issue today is not anymore giving up parts of Eretz Israel, because first of all, thank God the Arabs one thing that we cannot even. You have to understand, if the Arabs will agree for peace, and will agree for what Bibi offering them, automatically they will give, and they will uproot hundreds of 100,000 Jews. Because the Jewish people for peace, for hearing the word peace, are ready even to give, to give up even Bath Street, to give up even Fifth Avenue. They are ready. Tell the Jews the word peace, they are ready to give up the parents, the bobbies, the ladies, they forget everything. But luckily, Akadosh Baruch Hu keeps us from our enemies and from our our friends in the Arab say, no, not because we are not ready to give up, because the Arabs are not ready to get. And the Baruch Hu is again the work of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because if they will say yes, we'll give back, we'll give up even Tel Aviv, because the Jewish people for peace are ready to give up everything. Because we are so weak, we told them after being in the Galut 2000 years, we lost our backbone, we lost our spine, we are not strong enough. It takes time till we will build many Baruchim, many Michaelim, many Shernaim, many Rinaim, many Ketelim. It will take time till we will build David HaMelech again, David HaMelech's soldiers and David HaMelech's people. It will take time. But meanwhile, there's work and extra hours. And as Baruch said, we have over 700,000 Jews growing 6% a week. Am Yisrael is becoming stronger, people are coming back, and Be'ezrat Hashem, we are going to see Mashiach coming, Beis Hamikdash is going to be built, and the old Jews from Florida and Miami Beach will make Aliyah and come to live in Am Yisrael.
Amen. Yay!
Thank you so much. I would like to see if anybody has any questions right now for either Kessler or Baruch Gordon. Yes, sir.
I have a question for the change of the demographic trajectory is wonderful. And at that rate,
Yes, it works.
the change in the demographic directory is wonderful, but at that rate, it'll take 2 millennia to get rid of the Arabs. In the meantime, we have 2.5 million Arabs in Israel, plus 1.5 million in a part of Israel that's now called the Gaza Strip. Propaganda about this is a battle about the war, about land, nothing to do with land. I myself have read the Quran, and in the Quran it says very clearly that all infidels are destroyed or subverted, and so we have 4 million dissidents that cannot be assimilated into Jewish Israel. What do we do with them?
Excellent question. What do we do with the Arabs? And to give you 3 short answers. So first of all, if it takes 2 millennia, we once made a calculation of the movement to buy out houses in the old city of Jerusalem. There's a movement to buy out houses from the Arabs, and the calculation we made is that if at the present rate that we're succeeding in purchasing homes from Arabs, it will take 300 years for the entire old city to become Jewish. So if it takes 300 years, it'll take 300 years. We have patience. We waited 2,000 years. We can wait another 300 years. When I once debated this woman from Shalom Akshav, she ended her speech, she said, which means, will you forever engage in battle? How long do you want to fight? Why not turn to peace? How long do you want to continue battling? How long, Baruch, do you want to continue to have your children going to war? When will the end be? So I answered it very simply. I said the same answer that Zionists have given throughout all of history. As long as it takes.
Yeah.
As long as it takes. We are not going to give up.
Yeah.
You will have children as long as it takes. And the final answer I would say is, I think Bennett, the head of the national religious movement now in Israel, the Knesset, he's come up with a plan, and he has, I think, a very smart next step. And he says there's no perfect solution to the Arabs, the Arab problem in Israel, the demographics. But he says, if you, without going into all the Oslo process, he says the first step we should do is to annex Area C, meaning the area which is most of Judea and Samaria, where you have 700,000 Jews living and only 50,000 Arabs, because they're all inside the small areas of the major cities. Let's take a step forward and annex that, make that a part of the state of Israel, incorporate those Arabs, and we'll see what happens after that.
I'd like to add something. Anyway, what Kessler said about Hashem, God, as far as we are concerned about the history of humanity, we can see that the Jewish people are going opposite the history of humanity. In other words, our history is completely against the current. We're like the salmon. Whatever happens for the human history is against what we do. In Tolstoy,
To be part of either the National Service Force or the Army, depending on what they want to do. I think it's a positive thing. I think it'll be good for those families as well. Something we can talk about perhaps more in depth on another occasion.
yeah.
Hi, Richard Freer, Floridians for the Safety and Security of Israel. We are so thankful, Kessler, for what you've done with Bethel. We're so thankful for Israel National Radio. It's really a joy to listen to Tamar Yona and the other crew members there. What you've given us is so great. Floridians for the Safety and Security of Israel holds rallies every few weeks down in Kendall and up in Fort Lauderdale at the Federal Building. If anybody would like information about these rallies, if anybody wants any bumper stickers, protect and defend, keep Jerusalem united, U.S. out of UN, UN out of U.S., and so forth, see me. I'll give you my business card, our website, and once again, God bless you guys. Kessler.
Sherry Davidson from the Jewish Press.
So it is an honor to be here with such a number of people. I'm Shirley Davidson. I'm South Florida editor of the Jewish Press, which is the largest Jewish English language newspaper in the United States and Canada. And I have a question. So Baruch has said that there's a plan underway to annex, about time, I would say, the land that we took back, that we liberated. The Arab population and Arab leaders are never afraid to get up and say strongly, the Holy Quran says, blah, 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 blah. And what is someone going to do? They're going to dispute their own holy book? What if the Prime Minister of Israel got up and said, I wish that we could give everything away, but the Holy Torah says that there's a law of Ger Toshav, a resident stranger, and although I would like to give every inch away, please the United Nations and to please the European Union and to please the current President of the United States, we're forbidden. Where the laws of Ger Toshav say that a non-Jew may live in Israel with property rights and private rights, but not political rights. And that is our law. We're stuck with it. That would solve the entire Arab-Israeli problem. By keeping to the Torah. We already have a plan, and it's the law of the Torah. It might not be PC, but you know, all the years.
Think of the United Nations.
To get out of the United Nations, I don't necessarily support. The fact that we should put the bill for an organization that doesn't seem to have our interests doesn't make sense.
Amen. Okay.
Americans like to believe that the Arab-Israeli problem is comparable to the white-black problem in the 60s of civil rights. And we can live side by side, but it is a totally different thing. We have to realize that it is not analogous, and we have to face reality, even if it's not so PC, politically correct. So what does Baruch have to say about that?
Amen.
David Prager, the son of Dennis Prager.
All right.
Mrs. Kramer. I want to say that I disagree with some of the eloquent remarks that were just said, but I do have two questions. Question number one is, a lot of American pro-Israel speakers like Alan Dershowitz and his famous book, The Case for Israel, make a secular argument for the case that everyone should get behind. And I do believe that there are, though I haven't heard too many, cogent arguments for justifying a major Jewish presence in the West Bank and Gaza. So I want to, it seems to me that it's difficult to get, it's obviously difficult to get the entire world behind us, regardless of what arguments we have. But I was curious to ask you, gentlemen, if there is a way to justify, without invoking God or invoking the Torah, a justification for saying that we do need a presence in the West Bank. That's question number one. And question number two, Baruch, when you said that a lot of what's happening in Israel nowadays with the surge in birth rates does not have to do with the religious, but rather with the non-religious. It's very interesting that most Western countries are lowering in birth rates. Most secular Western countries are lowering in birth rates. To what, just out of curiosity, to what do you attribute the rise in birth rates of non-religious in Israel?
Write your book, Arafat. Put on your book, Arafat.
You should get it closer. He said, you go to the UN and go through all the papers and tell me, when's the first year that in a UN document the word Palestinian appears referring to an Arab people? And he looked it up, and it was 1970, meaning that until we liberated the territory, there was never Palestinian people. Only after we liberated the territory, suddenly there was a Palestinian people.
The Jerusalem Post was the Palestinian Post.
Right, the Palestinian Post, the Palestine Bank. Your second question was?
Where you attribute the rise in the secular growth rates in Israel?
I asked Yoram Ettinger, who is the leader of the research, how come the secular Israelis are having more children? And his answer was, I don't know.
No, because they're religious.
Kessa says the secular religious.
There is no Jew that isn't secular. Every Jew is Ma'aminim Bnei Ma'amin.
Okay, I have one more question, and 1 second, one more question. Coming up.
I understand. It's an answer to Mr. Prager. I think Baruch or Katz, if you could answer. I think the report by former Supreme Court Edmund Levy may provide this gentleman with a basis that is not Torah-based, but more legally based. But to Katz, if I may ask him, how would, with all the emunah that one may have, how would the Israeli society flourish with the fact that there's a general prosecution, or it's called Praklitut in Hebrew, or the Supreme Court, Bagatz, that seem to be very slanted against anything that is pro-Zionist?
We didn't completely understand what you were asking. Maybe just like straightforward. Let's do it in English.
Okay. Given the current situation in Israel, with the Praklitut and Bagatz, which means the general prosecution, and the Supreme Court, aside from the Tishkovet, that are very left-wing, very far left-wing, who have something against anything that's Jewish, and they have everything for the Arab cause. How do you see the near future flourish? Come the problem that one has, even though you have strong emunah, what these people are, these forces are against anything that's Jewish.
So first of all, you called them leftists. I really believe that we're the left, because a left-wing movement is a movement in which you have Western imperialist nations trying to suffocate and vanquish the rights of an indigenous people to dwell in their homeland with independence. And that's a classic case of the Jews in Zion. We're the left, and the people who are receiving money from the Western imperialist powers like the European Union, which is pumping money into peace now, they're agents of those powers. And they're struggling against us, the indigenous people, to dwell in our land. So first of all, we're the left. And that's number one. Number two,
it's a slow developmental process. We can't fix everything. If everything in Israel was suddenly fixed, if the Supreme Court had people with payas, long beards, if the prostitute, it would be boring. Who would want to come in? It would be in Miami Beach, So it's a nice mixture. It's a slow developmental process. For the first time in the last Knesset, the committee which appoints judges was balanced for the first time. So very quietly, they were appointing a lot of people, a lot of good judges who have opinions that they're pro-Jewish, pro-religious, pro-Judean Samaria, reaching the lower court. It's a slow developmental process will start to rise, just like in all other aspects of society. Just wanted to point out just one thing. Rena Kramer, this is the first time we're meeting her. We've talked on the phone a lot over a lot of different issues. She's fire and brimstone. Every time I have her on the phone is just glowing and beaming. It's like, you talk on the phone, it's like, wow. He says, who did you talk to? I said, Rena Kramer, wow. So we want to thank Rena very much. And I want to make Yasser Arafat, when he was involved, he made a very salient point. He said, let's take this like the judgment of King Solomon with the two mothers who came arguing over a baby. Yasser Arafat said, one mother said, the baby's mine. They each said, the baby's mine, the baby's mine. When King Solomon said, let's split it, so one side said, okay, split the baby. That's fair. We'll split the baby. It's a fair split. And the other mother said, my God, split the baby? She couldn't even couldn't think about it. And King Solomon awarded her the baby. Those that say, let's just take Judea and Samaria, take a knife down the middle of our country and cut it and give it away to a foreign entity. How can we do that? We should be related to this like our baby. Yeah. Let's embrace it. Let's not lose the judgment of King Solomon. Let's win it. Let's claim our land. Let's stand up. Let's stand behind Israel. Let's stand united, Orthodox, conservative, reform.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much for coming, and hopefully we'll have many more strength. And hope it was inspiring for all of you. Thank you. Good night.
Wonderful, wonderful program.
ניסיתי. יש לי בדודה שלי, שופט בג"ץ. פעם חשבתי שסימן ייבדק. היה משפט, לפני שנים היה איזה משפט לגבי שפסלו אותה מהכנסת, היא הייתה אחת שרצה להרשיע אותו שלא יוכל בעזרת השם.
Tell him that I met you.
Well, let me have your card.
כבוד הרב, לא, חבר כנסת? קצר, לא נעים, כבוד דוקטור רב.
גדול מרב נשמע. חוץ כמעט סביב לקבל מרמות, חבל. זה כבר אחרים. He asked the same question, which you asked about Eldad. Why did you join?
Professor Eldad and Dr.
We have tried very hard to convince him to run together with us. But we are after. Right. Now they're out. Now after having two cancer, and the research, they didn't do it. They will never do it again because they will not be a member of the Knesset. They cannot do it. And that is the end of the story of these two guys. And we have to go together. Big. We have to be big. People want to influence.
But that takes me back to 4 years ago.
Yeah.
My first became aware of the National Union.
And
I understand that the National Union was not go with Hershkovitz at the time because the Hershkovitz group would not insist from Netanyahu. He would not give any land to the Arabs.
With them. You send regards from Rabbi Noah, okay?
You need any help?
Well, but again, our Tikrut in Israel, because we say Rov Am Adrat It means when you are big, you are respected. When you are small, you are neglected. A king can be, this is the word, it's a biblical sentence. Rov Am Adrat Melech, it means the
more mass, more
honor to the
honor.
To the king.
Thank you.
The biggest thing that was not impressed was what Israel reforming They can't say that. They say that.
I'm saying it's not something. First of all, the situation is many times better than.
May I look at one of the posters there, the stickers?
When they were the majority.
May I
we were the
help myself with the stickers?
You got money? Take
I
three.
don't have any money.
Take three.
I'm a retarded person.
Take three.
How do I get one of your
You just give me your email address and I'll send you information about our group.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Take as many as you want. Yeah.
For the Jewish people to take them outside, it's not a reality. But the Kurdish people, like how the Arabs ran away from Jaffa, how they ran away from Haifa, how they ran away from.
By the way,
how they ran away from London.
But they're not running away now.
If the U.S.
Every country in the United States
Maybe tomorrow if I'll be
is supporting it.
Maybe if I'll be tomorrow Prime Minister, they will run away.
The United Kingdom would offer them a citizenship. A couple of more of them might move there, make it truly.
They're not going to do that. The Brits have enough Islamists in London.
It's not going to. You can't do an ethnic cleansing. That's not.
Can't what?
Do ethnic cleansing.
What's ethnic cleansing?
It's like taking let's say 100,000 Arabs from a certain section. You got to move out.
May I ask you a question?
By the way, we're on the same side.
How old are you?
I am retarded already.
Do you remember what happened in 1945 to 1948 when 15 million ethnic Germans
were moved?
They lived in the Sudetenland, they lived in Poland for 400 years.
But that's the communists. That wasn't Jewish people doing it. The world won't stand for that. I understand what you're saying.
What was your reaction when you heard that Hezbollah killed Rafiq Hariri? How did you feel when you heard that? I mean, were you as shocked as I was?
Nobody was surprised.
No one was surprised? I was shocked.
And we are not surprising they killing each other.
Pardon me?
We are not surprising they continuing killing each other.
Yes.
Because unfortunately or fortunately they are a nation of blood nation. They're killing each other. And they have no respect not to human life and not to the brotherhood and not to the life. So we are not surprised. And because of that we are lucky that in Syria happening.
Yes.
We are lucky that in Egypt they're killing each other.
Yes, we are.
We are lucky also in Lebanon they're killing each other.
Yes.
We are lucky. They're killing each other, not killing us.
But there are 1.5 billion Arab Muslims in the world. It'll take a long time to kill them.
But leave something to Kodesh Baruch Hu. I'm going to the other team.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, here we are, Coral Gables, Florida. All right, it's on. Holocaust Remembrance Day, January 27th, 2013. We're here before a rally. We talked about the fact that there could be a second Holocaust. up. All right, folks. Contact Floridians for the safety and security of Israel. Get active. Subscribe to the WND, WorldNet Daily. Read the writings of Daniel Pipes, especially the beautiful Diane White. Oh well. Get informed, get active, protest. All right, we'll wrap it up. We did good. Once again, on Miami Beach, on the 29th, 8 p.m., the founder of Bethel in Israel will be there, Ketzela, along with his partner who started Arutz Sheva radio station, Israel National News. Everybody should go on over and thank them for their contributions to Eretz Israel. I set that in the truck. So, visibility is really essential. Diana West has a great column and blog. Brave and beautiful lady. David Horowitz, David Mayer Levy. Read the writings of the people who are sticking their necks out. No land for peace. No more appeasement. Okay. January 27th, 2013, and you were there. Sunday afternoon. In front of Temple Judea.
All right, let's wrap this.